Well, hello, everyone. Good evening, perhaps good morning, good afternoon, depending on if you are watching this live or if you are joining us. So very glad to be able to be joined by these three wonderful individuals who I will allow to introduce themselves here shortly. But welcome to Kaleidoscopic Conversations. Just to introduce myself, my name is Lepora Lindsay. I consider myself a workplace catalyst facilitator, as in an inspirational speaker and also a trainer. By day, I am a learning and development manager. So no matter how you look at it, I absolutely love training. So tonight we're actually going to, last week we talked about basically having conversations, whether we disagree or don't disagree, how do we have productive conversations? This evening, we're going to be talking about comparison and whether or not it is something that is beneficial. But before I go any further, I want to allow these three wonderful individuals to share a little bit about themselves. So Lee, we'll start with you because you are first on my screen. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful for that. I am a retired veteran, and my company is all about one, and we help people reach their potential. We do this through coaching, consulting, as well as Christian theater productions, and we are located in Fredericksburg, Virginia.
All right. Thank you, Lee. Denicia, you are next on my screen.
Hey. I'm so excited to be joining you for the second week in our second session. Hi, everybody. I'm Denicia Hilton Harper, and my company is Hilton Holistic Health and Wellness. And this is where it is that you get to play at the intersection of authentic leadership and holistic health. So it's blending those together where it is that you get to discover and be your unique, perfect, authentic leadership style. And we get to use the whole body and the messages that it contains for you to discover just who and what that is.
Love it. Love it. And Matthew, last but not least, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Mangiapane. I am a marriage and family therapist based out of New York. My company is MJM Wellness. I also work for a mental health housing agency and provide housing and mental health services for veterans and those with mental health disorders. Keeps me
Love it.
busy.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Denicia. Thank you, Lee. All right. So before we get started into our topic for tonight, this as a summary of last time, I've actually had a conversation earlier today, and I recognize that, even when we're in these situations where there are conversations that are beneficial to us, they don't necessarily feel good. Like taking in that information. I was in a conversation and I didn't agree initially with what the person was saying. And honestly, even after they said it, I still didn't agree with them. It just felt terrible. But as I sat and I thought about it, I was like, you know what? They're right. And it was even worse at that point because they really did have a really good point. It's like eating vegetables. So we're going to get our servings tonight of our nutrients and all of that good stuff. So comparison. All right. So we're going to start off the question with, and this is for all three of you to answer. And the only thing I want you to tell me right now is when it comes to comparison and we're talking about our careers, do you lean towards comparison being something that is useful, or do you lean towards comparison being something that is more so of something that we need to be wary of? And whoever wants to go first, you can go ahead and take it.
I'll go. I'll leave this off.
We started that way last week. There was just that hesitation, but then once the ball gets rolling,
Right? Like,
Hey, breaking the ice. You're good at it.
okay, I will take the ball. Thank you. So I Okay, so I think it's by circumstance, it's by situation.
Okay.
I would say overall, if I find myself in that position of comparing, then that's when I might pause. It's not I might, I will. I'll pause. And then I would start to ask, what is it that I'm comparing? Um,
Mm,
and then what is it that is actually like, because you have to, I feel like you have to understand that you're looking at this from your perspective, from your lens, right? And so this is what they say, like all four of us can go to an art museum and stare at the same picture or sculpture, and then we're going to see something completely different, like between
right.
each of us, right? So it's kind of like okay, I'm seeing something, but then I'm also infusing it with my own zhuzh. I'm creating a story around what I'm seeing. And so
Yeah.
that's when I'll start to ask, like, what's the story that I'm creating? Why am I creating this story? Like, am I creating this because there's some fear? Am I creating this because I'm feeling like I can't do that, or whatever it might be, right? Like, I think it's understanding that where I might be coming from and opening myself up to that, and then going. Now, when it's the wary side, I think that's when it's definitely like, I'm really feeling like, oh, I really want to be going forward in this area of my life, and then it's not happening. But then if I do that, that kind of leads me into making choices that may not actually be sustainable, because that was just a choice I made out of fear. And so it's just to get me over that initial fear for me to, quote unquote, as you said earlier, feel better in that moment. But it may not actually last, because it was literally just to get me out of fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And
Right.
that was it. Right. So I think it can serve a purpose for sure. I think you got to be really active in the process, though, which I think is just going to take awareness.
Yeah.
Once you start seeing that you're doing that, starting the comparing, or visiting Comparisonville, as I say.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Matthew, Lee, do either of you have anything to add on to that?
I mean, certainly agree with overall what Denicia is saying. I see the benefits to comparison, but it's very easy to fall into that trap of almost over comparing or creating these narratives that aren't necessarily true. Whether it's in the workplace or elsewhere, it's 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 easy for us to look at other people and say, how come I'm not at that position? How come I'm not at that level? How come I haven't done it as quickly as that person has? Or there's the
Mm.
25-year-old wonder kid and I'm not 25 anymore. But at the same time, when you're taking that comparison from a more realistic standpoint and being very present in yourself and understanding what the comparison is and why you're comparing, it does help you give a little bit of motivation for yourself too. Well, that person did that. Maybe I could do that too. Maybe I can ask them questions and they can help me guide me along and how I can move forward. So it's a balancing act, and it's almost like anything that could potentially be a vice. Too much of it is not necessarily a good thing, but there are benefits to it as well.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what? That was so amazing. I don't even want to answer now. I just want to just say, me too. I
Don't
thought
compare
there's,
answers, just answer.
as I was listening to that, the things that stood out was just, awareness is so important. And then, over comparing, thought here is that too much of anything can be harmful. So I
Mm.
think comparing ourselves to others, especially in the career field, it can be useful, but it can be harmful. Major thing that I get out of that is, I heard this saying a long time ago that success leaves clues. So by us
Mm.
seeing what others are doing, I believe there's a benefit of helping us to get to the next level. And then also there's the second benefit is that we can avoid some roadblocks or some things that they did wrong and we can learn from them. But then like Matthew said on the totally opposite side, where we get totally into over comparing ourselves, then it can slow us down and drag us. And we're always in that comparison. And I think that it can harm our self-esteem where we're thinking, oh, woe is me because I haven't reached those levels that those people I'm trying to compare myself to.
Mm. That brings up a really good point. And before I address that, I just want to say for those of you who are just joining, we're talking about comparison, when and how to compare, if there's a better time than not, if you're leaning towards comparing or if you're leaning towards not using comparison as a tool. But one of the things, Lee, that you just brought up is self-esteem in comparison. And Denicia and Matthew, I feel like you all have all kind of talked about as far as with striking that balancing act and using it as a strategic tool, but at the same time, not getting caught up in a place where it becomes overwhelming. So, are there any tricks and tips that you want to share for those who may be listening, whether they're listening live or if they are? I see a finger. All right. Go ahead, Tanisha.
I do have one. All right. So if I were to sum this up, I look at it as reflections. So I believe that our relationships with people And this doesn't matter if it's acquaintance, if this is passerby, all the way to the really rich, very super long term type of relationships. We're always in a relationship with other people, right? And while we are in that relationship, once again, perspective, right? We can see things in others that are oftentimes within us or has been something that we had experienced with in the past. So it's a reflection. And so if that is it, it's even seeing it. And I point this out because it's, to me, it's like extremely important to know and understand that often what we are seeing sometimes is actually within us. And and I say that because like this is where judgment comes in. So if you're going in with a practice of non-judgment, this is when people would say, "Oh, I see that," and it's a good quality. They see this and they dub it a bad quality that's only in that person, but it's like you see it because you have that ability to also express that. So if you can remove the judgment part, right, of a good or bad quality of what you're seeing and simply seeing it as a neutral observation, a reflection, then you can start to ask, what is it? So here's a great example of when I really figured this part out. For some reason, I could not stand Beyonce. so, so like
The
I
beehive.
mean, I mean, seriously, I know, like, seriously, but hang in there
You
with
about
me.
to lower our ratings
Right?
now.
No.
Yes.
You got the
Might as well
beehive
just
mad.
close it down.
They gotta stick with me though. Like, once again, no judgment. Like, so, like, because, like, all right, like even in Destiny's Child, she was not my favorite. Like, it was others. But anyways, I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, what is it about her? And then as I studied, grew my own personal development, spiritual development, and all of that, and then I came to that realization, like something said to me one day, like, you're seeing something in her that is within you. It's not without reach. So it's not like, so it's kind of like, oh, could it have been jealousy? But then does that mean then that I'm thinking that that's not within my reach? Right? Like, but if I see it, that means it's within me. That means it's possible. Right? It was seeing that, like, man, she's got these multiple businesses. It's seeing the way that she just kind of like would disappear, don't really got to be on social media, and then just all of a sudden come out and then sell out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm like, dang, I want that for my business. Like, because I like being to myself a lot. And then when I have something really to say, that's when I show up. That's why I like a lot of my social media stuff is really inconsistently consistent, like, because that's just what I believe in. Right now, I get she has a whole team that's also strategizing marketing and everything else like that too. But it was seeing that, it was seeing the amount that, well, I don't even know exactly the amount, nobody does, because of giving, like giving philanthropically anonymously, or like giving in this way of just like being there for all these other people. So once again, it was seeing these things, but I had to be real and honest and open with myself. And then to not, the word victim came up, then to not victimize myself or say, ugh, like, why did I do blah, blah, blah. Like, now I'm going down past the memory lane, starting to go through that talk of like questioning, berating why I'm there in that spot. Right. So, like, once I got to that point of realizing I'm just seeing stuff that I'd like for myself, really, that's really what it is. And because I see it, and she's a reflection that's showing up in the expression of her. She's a shell. So that's how, a way to depersonalize it, right? Like, so it's not just anchoring into someone else. What you're doing is now you're picking apart the qualities. It's the qualities that you're looking for, right? Not that person, but the qualities. And so then once I went through that process, it was like, ah, now I see. So now I got something to anchor within myself. It's like, I have that philanthropic heart. I have these great, big, huge philanthropic vision, like the way to grow my business and all of that stuff. I have all of that, and I see it in someone else. And I like, I think Matthew, did you say that? Like no, Lee, like the little steps stepping stones of clues of success.
Yes.
That are also stepping stones. But like it's so that I would say like that was it's a long process in a sense of like there's several steps that were involved. But like I would say that would be huge, is really seeing that what we're seeing are reflections. And we can see it because we had experience with it, or it's a part of our core being. And that is just bubbling up. That memory of that is bubbling up and saying, aha, it might need your attention now. And you might now want to call that part of your authentic being and express that into your life right now.
Okay.
So Beehive, I hope y'all cool now. You understand my process. Me and Beyonce, we cool, all right? Like
I'm Lee Morton. I do not support what she said.
I feel like too, a lot of that plays on the mental, and Matthew, I know you have the background in mental health. So is based off of what Denicia said, is there anything there that kind of plays into that mental health aspect as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you find yourself comparing, especially negatively, to other people, whether it's Beyonce or my own experience, I have a little bit of that comparison level with my own brother. We both play guitar. It's a hobby, but he got much better than me much quicker. So there was always that little bit of that competition, that comparison, and it. As I said before, it's very easy to get into that negative mindset, thinking, "How come I can't do that?" or "How come this person is so much better than me?" And somebody had said to me once before, it's really true of pretty much anything. It may not be the most positive thought process, but there's always going to be somebody who's going to be better at something that you're doing. The best guitarist in the world is going to have one person who's better than him and one person that's better than her, and it's going to go on and on. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with not being the best in the world. You could still excel at something. You could still be really great at something. You could still have a real passion for something. And when you're falling too much into that comparison and leading to those negative thoughts, it starts to affect you as a whole, because you start doubting yourself. You don't feel as confident about yourself. You don't feel like you can maybe take the risks, big or small, that you would have taken normally. And that really goes into a lot of what Denicia had already said, where you want to become present and understand yourself and your own perspective. Why am I comparing myself to this person? Why am I comparing my abilities to this person's abilities? Maybe I have a different skill set. Maybe I have a different ability to connect with people than this person can, or maybe I have other options in front of me that I haven't thought of because I'm too laser focused on this one particular comparison. So it can certainly bring about a much larger negative effect on a person when you're comparing yourself either too much or too much in that negative way. And a big step in the right direction is to A, be aware of that, and B, start figuring out, again, what are the positive things that you have. Let's work with that. Let's build on that. Let's see where else you can go with that. It doesn't necessarily mean you're better or worse than whoever or whatever you're comparing yourself to. You have skills, you have abilities that maybe you're not even really fully recognizing. So let's kind of harp on that a little bit and build that up. But yes, it can certainly have a negative effect, but you could also have that positive side of self motivation too for some people. But again, as we've all been saying, it's a balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Which one? Lee, you look like you're in deep thought.
I love what's being said here, Matthew. I love that fact that you talked about building in that self motivation. And what came to mind as what Denisha was saying is that, and Matthew, you reiterated this as well, as we see others and we say, I can do that. And then it takes me to the next step of, I should be doing that. And like coming into this year, for the past couple of years, I've been looking at others and going, why is that not me? And Denisha, when you were talking about that, there's so many folks that I could call them out by name. For me, it was just a jealousy, because I'm seeing, just like has been mentioned here, I'm seeing that they have this gifting, they have this talent, they have this superpower. And I see that same thing in myself. And I think moving forward, or the advice I would give to anyone is, when you see someone with that gifting or that talent, like Denisha said, that mirrors what you have, the motivation for that, like Matthew said, for me is that they started somewhere. and know that you are on the same road. You might not be on the same trajectory just because God has something different for each of us. We all can't be Beyonce. We all can't be guitar players. So know that they all started somewhere. I'll give my own personal story here for a second. So we do Christian theater plays. And the first thing that comes to mind, oh, you do Tyler Perry plays. Yes, it's very close. But I don't play the main role. And if you listen to Tyler Perry's story and his testimony, is he was having shows that no one was coming, or 5 people were coming, 10 people were coming. And here we're doing the first show we ever did in the military. There was like 100 people that came. And now we're doing our first shows really out here as a business. And each of our shows have had at least 200 people. So I look at that, you know what, I look at him, you know, for that inspiration, but I know that I'm on a different course. And then I take that motivation of, you know what, they started here where I am now, and I can take that and build that. And so just to wrap this all up, you know, with I can do that and I should be doing that. What I have adopted for this year, 2024, is the mindset of this: what am I waiting for?
It's good. I thought you were about to answer it.
Hey, sometimes you got to leave people wanting more.
Oh, somebody said they love Tyler Perry, great artist and producer. Very cool. So I can see that. I can see that. You know, y'all are saying so many great things. It's wonderful. Like one of the things that that really caught my attention was there is always going to, well, number one, success leaves clues. And then number two was don't over compare, remove the judgment. So just look at the qualities of that person versus the person themselves. If you find yourself almost going into like this downward spiral of negative, it's not so much as the person as the qualities that you are wanting to replicate, duplicate. And then success, hold on, no, sorry, I can't read my own notes. Oh, there will always be someone better than you, but that doesn't mean you can't excel at something, which I think is so important, because I think a lot of times when we get to that comparison, we think, well, I have to keep trying because I have to be just as good as that person. But if remembering, number one, success leaves clues, and that we're looking at the qualities, and we're also understanding that there's always going to be someone better. So even after we make it to the point where we feel like, okay, I'm better than this person, well, guess what? Somebody else is going to pop up, and now we got to start back over again. But if we start focusing rather on those qualities, it makes a huge difference. And I would like to share this story. I've never been the person who has always believed that comparison is something that we should do, that we should, like, I still have the 7 rules of life on my wall, and don't compare is number 4. I need to like black it out with a blackout marker and just say compare. And the reason why was because probably about 3 years ago, when I first started my business, I was getting a lot of advice from people. And one of the things people kept saying was, you know, don't speak for free. Don't do anything like this. You're not going to make any money. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I was like, okay, that's what everybody says. Note, asterisk mark, don't speak for free. But by then I had already scheduled a couple of free speaking engagements. And so I went ahead and followed through with them because I'm not going to cancel on it. And 4 to 6 months later, I started getting paid leads from those speaking engagements. And then I recognized that in hindsight, I was trying to compare myself and essentially come up with the same result based off of what other people were saying, not even recognizing that I didn't have enough information given their background. I didn't have enough information as far as what their expertise was. I wasn't taking into an account what my expertise was, what my background was, and putting it all together in order to make that decision. And I think a lot of times that's where we kind of get a hiccup in comparison, is that we're looking at it on such a surface level, but we really do have to go deeper, as I hear each of you say, in order for us to get to that final result. But also, I think a lot of times we're comparing based on the conclusion, like on the end result, versus the process. What is the process for us to get to where we're going? Not the conclusion. How do I end up like this person? No. How how do I create a successful career? If we're talking about professionalism, how do I create a professional career for myself? Which I think is so amazing. I wanted to share briefly some of the things that Gia said, who joined us last week, but she can't be here tonight. Was that a lot of times people get hung up because they don't understand other people's journeys. They see, surface level, especially with social media, right? Where it's just, we see everything on one sided. My husband loved Rubik's Cubes. And so we see that on one side and we think it's solved, but then you move to the other side, and like none of the other sides are solved. Right?
On it.
And here we are trying to compare, and we're wondering why it doesn't look together. Well, it's probably because the people who you're trying to compare to, you can't see everything. But that's it. That for me, I'll be quiet with that. So is there anything else that you all feel like is really essential for those who are watching or listening, for other people to kind of think about and implement in their lives? And if anybody has questions, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. We want to hear from you. Or if you have comments, please feel free to share. Yes.
What you said, Lepora, in your whole story was exactly it. Like, I've heard the same thing, and I feel like one of the things that's actually missing, and this was one of the reasons why I shifted my business the way that I did, was because a lot of these trainings and coaching and stuff with business oftentimes removes the entrepreneur out of it. And so then it doesn't take into consideration that you got your perfect magic glitter, honey. Like, all of us got our perfect magic glitter just going to sprinkle everywhere, right? Like, and that means then that you have your own way, like you have your own style. Like, that's the way that it's going to be for you, right? Like, and it's just what you said. You don't really know what's actually involved in the process. And this, when I hear people talk about those types of stories, like, oh, I did this and only got like $100, or I did this for free and blah, blah, blah. That, to me, that's like telling me, okay, did you not really process the whole thing that happened? Because it actually opened doors. That, because you did that, you ended up practicing that speech more, that when somebody else came down the line that was offering you more money, you felt more confident in what it is that you were going to be delivering, right? Like, and that's what I mean when earlier when I was saying, like, you're seeing these in reflection, right? And Gia pointed it out too, like, not the journey, like, we're not really looking at, because we don't really see the journey, we just see what we see in a snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we only see that snapshot right then and there, right? And what's funny, when you mention social media, and I think about AI now too, that if you thought not seeing something and thinking that was real, and now we got images that can come out and voices coming out seeming like that's real, like, our whole dynamics and understanding of what is going to be real and not, we are going to be asked individually to stay grounded and rooted in ourselves and who we are authentically. And you got to get a hold on this Comparisonville visits, because it's going to get worse. Like, with the mental health, Matthew, I don't know what you're seeing in your demos of clients that are coming in, but it's like the suicide rate amongst teenagers, and a lot of them citing that it's social media. And then literally we're entering like, the way that AI is being done and used with deep fakes and all of that stuff. It's like, I feel like it's going to happen. And at the same time, we could really strap ourselves up, be in community with other people that are like live, like, they see you. They're going to speak life into your existence. They're holding that space for you. Because like, I see this happening. I see this trajectory. But as long as, if we can really get in with people and really be there for them and get them to understand and see, like, we see the greatness and the perfect magic glitter for you, it's going to be so useful. To me, that's staying with your purpose and leveraging the Comparisonville as reflections to be in your own purpose.
It's good.
I was thinking, I love how you talk about the journey because we all have our own journey. And like you were mentioning, folks will say, don't do it for free, charge, charge, charge. Quick testimony for me, I started out working at a church, and I did some consulting for them, and I was doing stuff for free. And then that led into me taking some pictures. I started out for free, and then they started paying me, which led to videos, which was a bigger project, so more money. And it got to the point where they hired me on to it was like $150,000 project where I was the project manager. And so, but it all came from doing something for free. And when I think about journey, we all have a different journey. And what I would hate to do is to miss the blessing that God has for me because I could not offer my services. And I held so tightly on the fact that I need that paycheck. So we all have to walk into, our own journey, our own, it's great to take people's advice, but like you said with the Rubik's Cube, I love that analogy because one side is done and perfect, but the rest is a mess. It reminds me just of what we talk about all the time with the iceberg. All we see is what's above the surface, but there's so much more under the surface of the water. And so for me, the advice I would give to anyone is, you know what, it's all about, we're all individual. Walk in your journey, take the advice, grow on it. And most importantly, folks talk about, just do one thing better than you did the day before. And over the course of a year, you are so much better and so much closer to your goals.
That's good.
Yeah, and I don't know how much I can add. I think you two really spoke a lot about it that I fully agree with, and about everything from starting off at a place where you're just opening doors for yourself or getting that practice in for more advanced things or for paying gigs, whatever it might be in the future, or just keeping yourself as grounded as you can. From my perspective, I tend to look at things almost beyond the individual when I'm in my therapy sessions. And yes, unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of things that teenagers are going through. And I feel like, as you were saying, Denicia, with this whole AI thing, it gets a little more scary too, because who knows what kids will come up with. And we've all been through high school. We know how difficult that was. Finding your support systems, I found, is one of the most important things for anybody I've met with or worked with. Whether you're focused on your own individual journey, which I think is wonderful and fully agree with, it's still nice to know you have other people who are behind you or who can back you up or who can ground you. Maybe you're getting a little too far out, thinking negatively about your abilities or not recognizing what you can do or what you've done even. And it's nice to have that person or those people in your lives, or the pets in your lives, or the forums that you might post online. There's ways to reach out to people and kind of say, hey, can you bring me back to earth a little bit? Because I think I'm getting a little too far out there. We all do it. It's okay that it happens. But one of the strongest things is really knowing what your support system is and taking advantage of it. Your friends are your friends for a reason. Your family, can't pick them, but they could be helpful. And it's always good to have somebody to talk to and a shoulder to cry on when you need it. If you're really struggling, if you're in the beginning of your business and it's not going anywhere and you feel like, what am I doing? I'm just spinning my wheels here. Maybe one of your friends has a good idea that you never thought of, or maybe your partner is somebody you can just kind of vent this all out to. We all have our journeys. Nobody, as we've all said, knows what anybody else has really been through on their own journey. So it's always good to focus on yourself and what your plan is and what your ideas are, and have those big ideas and be realistic about them as best as we can. But it's good to have that support system too, because no man is an island. I fully believe that everybody has somebody connected to them one way or another, or some way of reaching out to others. And sometimes we forget that, especially when we're over comparing in the wrong way. So I wouldn't say never compare, but be aware of your comparisons and be aware of your support systems.
That's good. The thing about that too, and for those of you who are just joining, because I see the numbers fluctuating on my end, we're talking about comparison. I think we've pretty much come to a consensus, as Matthew here has just pretty much summed up. It's just that we're not saying don't compare, and we're not saying compare all the time. We're saying you really do have to have some self-awareness, get to know yourself, and look at each situation individually. Now, there's much more than we said than that. However, that's just kind of sum things up. So I definitely recommend watching the replay. If you have questions, you can feel free, or comments, you can feel free to put them in the chat. And Matthew, one of the things that you said, and I feel like Denicia, that you mentioned this before, is yes, a support system. Lee, you mentioned that, and that's exactly what it is. But I also feel like that support system is so helpful for being able to understand, because my take, and I feel like everybody else's take, is that when we're looking at social media, we're looking at all these things, it's so much on a surface level. But if you have a mentor, or if you have a support group, or if you're having these conversations and discussions, then that's when you can start to get to know people. You can start to understand their journey. You can start to understand what goes on behind closed doors. And so, going back to Denicia's point of not comparing to the person, but looking for the qualities, we can understand where those qualities stem from, how individuals were able to grow and improve. And so, Matthew, you really brought up a good point there, in regards to really using our support system, as an ability to be able to grow, but also as a way to figure out, okay, so we're not just comparing a surface level, we're really getting to know the person and understand that journey. So I really appreciate that. And I think Denicia and Leah appreciate that point as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I was
Oh,
going to say
yep.
too, when you were searching for that support system, I just felt compelled to say this. Your support system can change
Mm,
Mhm.
and will evolve, and that is a okay. Just want to reiterate that, because you might say something that is an expression of a dream of yours that literally could be inspiration from God telling you this. And it didn't just come out of nowhere, right? Like, it's meant for you. And so that might mean that you might need a different support system, you know. And since we are talking about support and we're always in relationship, realizing that you yourself are a part of someone else's support system. So that self-awareness for yourself, keep in mind what you speak into existence for not only you, but you're doing it for other people.
mhm.
And just because someone might be coming to you with something that just seems like it's out there, just because you didn't see it in your journey, does not mean it's not expected for their journey, because it is a gift for them. So your support might be, you know what, let me ask ChatGPT how that can happen. I don't see it, but that's all right. Like, but let me see how we can make this happen, right? Like, and I just wanted to put that out there, because I know oftentimes a lot of conversations is you seeking your support system, but it's also like realizing that you are a support system for other people, and keep
Mm.
being aware of just what are you adding into the jish as well.
Yes,
Amen.
yes,
Could I add it into that?
yes, yes.
You know, I'm glad we're talking about support system. That's just so amazing. You know, I think about as we look at what we do, we always think of non-traditional things. And so as we talk about support system for folks, don't think that it always has to be that tribe that you're around, because you may be trying to go to a different level. What's that saying? If you hang around four smart people, you're going to be the fifth. But if you hang around four folks who are not ambitious, we'll say that, who are not ambitious, you're going to be that fifth person. So, you know, look for non-traditional ways. If you think about how we all have our tribe, or the folks that we're around, it's, you know, our family, yes. Then we have church or community groups, or even walking groups. I know I'm a part of the Today Show has a walking group. Oh my goodness, it's this amazing support to know that you can just put a post in there and you get so many things coming back, just positive. I we we pay for a coach, a business coach, and we had to look at, do we want to continue the service? Yes, we're getting a lot from the service, but that community is just so amazing. When we're on the Zoom calls, we all know each other, and offline we all connect. But it's that support, because if you're like a business owner, you're a solopreneur, you're out there, and it's so lonely. And you know, like it was said, you know, we can easily turn from, you know, where we are on maybe a high to a medium to a low so quickly. And if there's no one there to help us, or no one there that we can talk to or turn to, it could lead to, a dark place very quickly.
So true. So true. Wow, y'all. This conversation was really good. And I don't know if y'all saw the comments that had popped up, but Monea said that understanding the journey and how they got to where they are is important. Comparison without true context can be bad. And that came up around the time when we were talking about the support system, getting to know individuals, getting to know the story behind how individuals got instead of that surface level. And then Jermaine agreed essentially with what Monea had shared there. And I feel like this really too just supports everything that we've been talking about. Let's see. AJ Leverett said the company you keep is very important to your success, right? So Matthew, I feel like you kind of hit a good point here.
That's that mental health side.
The mental health, right? But that's so important, and I think that's such an instrumental aspect to comparison, is understanding that mental health aspect, understanding that it's not necessarily something that is this trap or this big evil, but it's something where we have to do work on ourselves to be able to truly understand how we can grow, how we can improve, how we can get better, without looking at people and saying, oh, if I look at them, they're going to bring me down, but rather getting to know them and having those conversations. So I appreciate the comments so much. I don't see any questions, but I do want to say, if you all can share, Lee, Denicia, Matthew, if you all can share your handles verbally, and then I can put them in the chat later. So how can people find you? How can people reach out to you?
So for us, you can just go out on Facebook and type in All About One, and you'll follow us. And then we're as well All About One Ministry on YouTube, as well as Instagram and TikTok.
All right, perfect. All About One. So Denicia, Matthew.
No, Denicia, that's okay.
Oh, mine's all the same. The handle's the same, at Denicia Hilton, and mostly active on Instagram and LinkedIn for sure, and Facebook close third. So, but all of them are at Denicia Hilton's the handle.
So you can find me either through our website, www.mjmwellnessny.com, and my handles on, I think, pretty much everything is also MJM Wellness as well.
All right, perfect. And for me, it's Lepore Lindsay. Everywhere, it's just Lepore Lindsay. But so grateful for this conversation. I hope that for those of you who are watching live, or those of you who perhaps watch the replay, that you are able to take some of these takeaways back. And if nothing else, remember that comparison doesn't have to be bad, but it really is just about understanding yourself, understanding the qualities of the person whom you may be comparing yourself to, but getting to know them, and not just that surface level, but understanding essentially, as Monea shared earlier, that context behind their accomplishments, and also understanding that success leaves clues. So look at what you're doing and see what's working for you, see what may not be working for you, right? And then also understanding that you can never, I won't say never, but you won't always be the best at what you do, right? As Matthew shared, sometimes someone can be better than you, but that doesn't mean you can't excel in a particular area. So really just keeping all of those wonderful things in mind. Next week, we're going to come back at the same time, and we're going to be talking about the imposter syndrome. Or are we? But no, it's going to be a great topic, because we're going to go past typically what you hear in regards to the imposter syndrome. And we're actually going to cover a couple of other things as well. So we'll be here, same place, at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll go to about 8:30, unless like tonight we get more comments and questions, and then we'll go a little bit longer. So 8 p.m. Eastern here. And I hope that you all have a great, a great night. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you all for participating. I appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.